So we believe at Lightspark that in the future, any corporation that needs to move money, which means every corporation in the world, will end up using directly or indirectly Lightning and Bitcoin to net settle between suppliers or customers, and so that's why we think it's important to be here to share the progress of Lightning, to share how Bitcoin and Lightning will become the interoperability neutral settlement layer between all of the real-time payment systems that exist domestically around the world. And we think that that's why corporations should really care.
Hey everybody, it's Eddie from Tokyo. This is your cryptocurrency update from Japan, and that was the former PayPal CEO, David Marcus. If you're in the crypto space and you love use cases for payments and blockchain, you can't ignore Lightspark. It's a layer 2 solution on the Bitcoin network, and this is really an under-the-radar interview from about 2 weeks ago. It only had 15 views. Now, everybody knows I've been extremely critical of Lightning, but Lightspark has my attention, and let me explain why. A co-founder is Christian Catalini. He's a scientist and founder of the MIT Crypto Economics Lab. Currently, he advises for Algorand, Chainlink, the U.S. Commodities Future Trading Commission, and many more. He was the head economist at Meta from 2018 to 2022, and this project, Lightspark, has raised $173 million, and it includes backers like A16Z. On the last day of last month, there was an announcement by Coinbase that they were going to get into a partnership. It's an integration partnership with Lightspark. And 5 days ago, Lightspark integrated with the first fully licensed bank, Xapo Bank. And this is where you can bridge to cryptocurrency and fiat. And the fees are so cheap. So this is definitely a competitor to anybody in the payment space going after that market share of cross-border remittances. Let's hear one more clip, just about a minute more from that interview.
Bitcoin is going to be the neutral settlement network and asset for the world. And we believe that it's the only asset that can be that because it's neutral enough in the eyes of everyone to serve as this way to interoperate domestic real-time payment systems. So, now we're going to have more adoption of FedNow in the US. In Brazil, there's Pix. In Mexico, there's Pay. In India, there's UPI. In Europe, there's SEPA. All of these systems are different, have different account formats, use different currencies, and we believe that Bitcoin can actually serve as a 24/7 always-on grid that connects all of these payment networks. And so once you believe that, you need to make Bitcoin really efficient and fast, and that's where Lightning comes in. Yep. And so what we do is we use Lightning. We made it enterprise grade and really easy to use. So we've basically abstracted the need for companies to operate the Lightning node with all of the intricacies of opening and closing channels, rebalancing and deploying liquidity, finding the best routes to route payments, split payments and multi-part payments to actually reassemble them on the other side of the network, all kinds of things that are very foreign to companies. So we're automating all of that. And enable them to have their own nodes running our software and have the keys, have the control, and we take care of the complexity for them. Then you can integrate on our stack and send and receive in any currency tapping into Lightning. And if you're a company that doesn't want to actually touch crypto or Bitcoin or any assets that is not a traditional fiat asset, then we have partnerships like with Zero Hash, for instance, that enables them to actually partner and use our stack without ever touching Bitcoin and by just sending and receiving dollars or any other currency they want. So I think, to all the businesses out there, you should really pay attention to what's happening. It's still early, but I think that businesses will be able to have a competitive edge if they can move money globally in real time at any given point in time, not, be blocked by the limitations of current rails and not be able to accept or send money Friday after 5 p.m. or to another country where it's going to take days or weeks. And those businesses are going to be able to have an unbelievable competitive edge, so they should really pay attention to the space.
And as Ripple continues to go after payments, they're also going after many other sectors in the space. And RippleX announced the XRPL grants for 7 new devs, and one of which I really want to talk about today. That would be Moai Finance. And as you can see on the lower left here, they are hosting a side event at Apex in Amsterdam on June 11th. I'm going to be moderating one of the panels, and Moai will be on that panel. On day 2, June 13th at Apex, you can see that there is a session presentation that's appropriate for all by Moai, and they are going to present the unified liquidity layer to empower the XRP ecosystem. Moai is on the Root network, but as you can see, they are also integrated with the XRP ledger and soon to be integrated with the EVM sidechain. You'll want to keep an eye out for a live space that Vet and I are going to co-host, and I think it's going to be some great alpha for what's going on the Root network. There is just so much development going on, and as you probably saw, there's $1 million going to Morgan State University in the form of a grant from Ripple. Morgan's National FinTech Center is looking for faculty and students to engage with Ripple's XRP ledger. You can see they are accepting applications now. And then you have the XRPL Commons teaming up with one of the universities in France for an exciting new research venture probing the impact of blockchain technology on labor markets, with a specific focus on the XRP ledger ecosystem. This is going to commence in fall of 2024. And payments is still a thing. Here is a letter that just was written in the summer of 2023 that came from Rahul Advani to the Treasury of the Australian government. And they're talking about the advantage of issuing a stablecoin on the ledger with the use of the digital asset XRP in its on-demand liquidity. Drilling down into issuing stablecoins on the XRP ledger in that letter, let me read that third paragraph down. While neutral assets such as XRP and stablecoins alike can be used to settle a payment, stablecoins have an issuer as the counterparty that does not allow them to interoperate across payment networks. XRP, on the other hand, can be sent directly without needing a central intermediary, making it best suited to bridge 2 different currencies quickly and efficiently. So the bottom line is competition is good. The more competition I see, the more I see Ripple suiting up to fight the good fight of grabbing as much market share as possible, not only in the payment space, but in the whole entire blockchain ecosystem. And let me share with you something that's rather nice. This is a small monument that's been put in a public space in honor of Kabosu. That is means pumpkin in Japanese. And that is the dog that was used to be the mascot of Dogecoin, who just passed away. You can see that lots of flowers have been dropped off. I'm going to let attorney John Deaton take you out. And until next time, yes, do take care. Sayonara for now. Bye-bye.
U.S. Senate candidate John Deaton is our guest. Let's go on the record. He's a political newcomer looking to take down a Capitol Hill titan. Can this Republican attorney make the case to oust Elizabeth Warren? The candidate is here. Let's get to it.
From WCVB Channel 5, the inside word from Washington to Beacon Hill. Today's newsmakers are going on the record.
All right, welcome to OTR this Sunday morning. Hi, everybody. Maria Stefanos, along with News Center 5 political reporter Sharman Siketti. Ed Harding is off this Sunday. And joining us at the table is John Deaton. He is running for U.S. Senate as a Republican. He's an attorney, a Marine. He grew up in Detroit, holds degrees from Eastern Michigan University and New England Law Boston. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure.
All right. Well, let's start. You're new to the state's political scene. We want to help voters get to know who you are. Do you consider yourself a Charlie Baker Republican or a Donald Trump Republican?
I consider myself a John Deaton Republican first and foremost. There is no candidate that you can compare me to with my life experience. If you forced me to pick a Republican, it would be a Republican like Charlie Baker.
We are going to force you, so good. I'm glad you answered.
Karen Polito, a centrist, common sense Republican, fiscally conservative, socially moderate. But I'm my own person, and I think I bring a lot of uniqueness to this race.
And you haven't made Donald Trump, President Trump, a focal point of your campaign. How come?
Well, there's no need. What I do is
he's poised to become the Republican nominee.
100%, but what I'm focused on is retiring Elizabeth Warren. And let me tell you, what we need to focus on is not so much the messenger, but the 74 million Americans who voted for President Trump, despite the 4 years of chaos or whatever else. Or why? Why did that happen? Why, if the race were today, the polls are right, would President Trump be the president? It's because of this broken system. These 74 million Americans are not feeling represented. And I'm giving them an option in the Commonwealth of someone who knows them, has been one of them, struggled with them in life, overcame poverty and all the other things that I bring to the table.
Do you consider the events of January 6th an insurrection?
Listen, it's a bad day in American politics, that's for sure. And it's unfortunate. And so, yes.
So the answer is yes.
Yes.
And do you believe that Joe Biden was freely and fairly elected president in 2020?
100%.
All right, let's move on to immigration, the migrant crisis, and the shelter crisis that's impacting Massachusetts. Now, you visited the southern border recently. You've also criticized Senator Warren for not voting in favor of bipartisan legislation to deal with the crisis. In fact, she didn't vote. So what is your border policy?
Well, listen, I went to the border and it was enlightening because I wanted to see the root of the problem. And if Senator Warren, who's been awfully silent on this issue, had she went to the border, I think she would have taken a different approach. We have a national security crisis, but also a humanitarian crisis, what these migrants are going through to get here. This false promise that they've been given. We have to secure the border. We have to end catch and release, and we have to reinstitute our policy with Mexico that asylum seekers will remain in Mexico. Did you know I learned that they're getting court dates 2032 for their asylum cases? That's incredibly.
Okay, but you're running for Senate here in Massachusetts. You know what's happening here in Massachusetts. We're spending billions of dollars to house these migrants in emergency shelters. It's the law here. What should change?
Well, first of all,
or should it change?
Well, first, I've been calling Massachusetts ground zero in the illegal immigration problem. You know, it should change, and I know that there's efforts to make residency requirements. Here's the problem. Combat vets who've served their country come back with PTSD, without a limb, they don't get a priority. We have to start taking care of the people here first, but we can't address the problem until we secure the border. That's the first thing we must do.
But we're not securing the border now, so you're in Massachusetts, we're in Massachusetts, what do you do now?
In Massachusetts, well, you need to get the federal government to stop the bleeding. You have to. That's why I said, and I was critical of Senator Warren, where has she been? Prior to this presidency, she was very vocal.
You know, President Trump put a stop to an immigration deal and said he wanted to run on it.
Well, that's President Trump, but that's not what I support. I would have voted for the bill. It's not a perfect bill. Let me make that clear. I would want more, but it's better than the status quo. And when you go to the border and learn what I did, we're talking about, when you count getaways, 12 million people have crossed the border. And when I call it a humanitarian crisis, that's exactly what it is when you learn what these people are doing with the cartel and what they're subject to. They've been given this false promise.
I want to just get back to what Maria was talking about, which is the shelter crisis here. You know, state officials say the people, the families who are staying in the shelter system are here legally, and their hope is to get them to, you know, work permits and to move on. And they've actually instituted limits for stays. I mean, do you think that's helpful?
Well, yes, but what's the problem is when you institute a limit, how do you get that family out? If they don't have a place to go, how do you get them out? Are they going to be forced out? We have to change the law in Massachusetts. In 1983, it's a noble law. When you think about your local government taking care of you when you have a catastrophic temporary situation, that's noble. But they did not envision a completely open border where 12 million people would cross the border into the United States.
Abortion, reproductive rights, key issues always, but in this election year as well. Since the Supreme Court's decision decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, President Biden has said that he would move to codify the right to an abortion into federal law. Are you supporting that?
Yes, I support the laws of Massachusetts. And let me make this clear. I'm a pro-choice Republican. I have 3 daughters. I am incapable of supporting laws that would restrict their rights or restrict their freedoms. And so when I get to the Senate, I will fight for that.
All right. And so the Supreme Court could also move to limit access to the abortion pill mifepristone. Here in Massachusetts, Governor Healy, she has stockpiled supplies. What do you want voters to know about your stand on that sort of thing? When there were other issues before the court, for instance, like this?
Listen, I think this is where we need to get out of partisan politics and start voting for who's the best candidate. There are issues like this issue. I will caucus with the Democrats on this issue. There will be issues I caucus with the Republicans.
Like what?
On the abortion issue that you're talking about.
But issues where you caucus with Republicans, what other issues?
Fiscal responsibility, balancing the budget. Right now, the government is at a $1.23 trillion deficit every year. You cannot, that's not sustainable. Do you know that we've printed nearly 80% of all U.S. dollars in circulation in the last 3 years? That is a disaster waiting to happen. We have to get people who are not loyal to a party, an agenda, or a person who will go to the Senate and do the work that the people need done. And that's someone like me.
Let's talk about the Affordable Care Act. President Trump tried to overturn that when he was president. If reelected, he's indicated that he's going to move to change it again. Polls show a growing majority of Americans support access to health insurance. You're a cancer survivor. What's your take on all of this?
Listen, I'm a cancer survivor, but I'm one of the lucky ones. My cancer was 95% survival rate. Caught when it was caught. But for 22 years in the Commonwealth, I've been representing people with mesothelioma and lung cancer caused by asbestos, fighting against corporations and insurance companies. I've sat at their table, so I understand this issue better than most people.
So do you support it? This whole access to health insurance, this whole thing?
Absolutely. If you look at my announcement video, it was the very first thing that I talked about as an issue. I've been inside the healthcare. I know what it means to have access to affordable health care, and it's something that I'll be dedicated to making sure happens.
I want to talk to you about Steward because that's obviously something that's coming up. They're bankrupt and they're likely to auction off their hospitals. I think it's scheduled for the end of June. It's put a lot of stress on the health system here in Massachusetts. Senator Warren, she's filed legislation. She wants to claw back some of the money from Steward executives, and she also wants to end these lease buyback agreements that Steward has done. Do you think private equity's role in healthcare needs to be limited, as Senator Warren has suggested?
Well, what we need, Senator Warren's always reactionary. I would ask, where has she been for the last decade? And you want to know the people that are getting disadvantaged? The communities where I'm from, where I grew up, I lived in Roxbury my first year.
She's been seeking to limit private equity generally for quite some time, but with healthcare, specifically when it comes to Steward, do you think that these types of agreements need to be ended?
Well, I think private equity is okay as long as safeguards are placed that are in place, where every year there's an analysis to make sure that what happened with Steward doesn't happen again. So I'm completely supportive of placing safeguards that would limit those things.
You grew up in Detroit. You lived in Rhode Island until very recently. Now you're here in Massachusetts. And why here? Why Massachusetts? Why did you move here? Well, aside from running for Senate?
No. I've welcomed any comparison of Massachusetts credentials to me and any other candidate, especially Senator Warren. Did you know that I was selected to represent the United States Marine Corps, to represent the entire Commonwealth in 1994's Judge Advocate Law contract? I beat out Harvard, BC, BU, and Suffolk law students. And for 22 years, a licensed attorney in the Commonwealth representing working families, iron workers, shipyard workers, pipe fitters, plumbers, auto mechanics, engineers, electricians. These are the people I've been sitting with, talking to for 2 decades about important issues in Massachusetts.
And so you put your home in Rhode Island up for sale a few months ago. It's still up for sale. Are you permanently living in Massachusetts? Are you
Yes,
sort of renting? How is that working?
I live in Swansea, and we are currently looking for a home in Massachusetts. But my daughter and the functional equivalent, my stepdaughter, are still in school, so we have to do the final move with my family.
So where do you live?
I live in Swansea.
You do live in
Yes.
Swansea, okay.
Yes.
And why are you here in Massachusetts?
Well, I might live in Woburn because I'm always there.
Right, I guess you're there at the right. But why are you here in Massachusetts? Is it simply to run for Senate?
No.
You know what I'm asking.
No, I understand what you're asking, but we were moving anyways. But like I said, I am deeply connected. You don't represent working families for 22 years across the Commonwealth. That kind of connection, representing the Marine Corps, the Commonwealth and the Marine Corps, I'm deeply connected to the Commonwealth.
All right, you've never held public office, and you've chosen U.S. Senate to be the first office you run for.
That's
Why?
bold.
Why are you doing that? Most people would maybe say, oh, well, I'll run for a seat on my local town board.
I'll tell you why, because we face so many crises: illegal immigration, debt. 40% of Americans don't have $500 set aside in case of an emergency. 1 million lives lost to opioid addiction, foreign wars, inflation crushing working families. But the greatest crisis is one of leadership in Washington, D.C., because the elites like Elizabeth Warren fuel division and keep us separated. And we need someone.
This is a big office for your first run.
Because I have the skill set to do it. And I tell you, I have the skill set better than Elizabeth Warren. I give her the benefit of the doubt. 12 years ago, I think she had good intentions, but she's the epitome of what happens in Washington, D.C. Remember, she was going to hold the bankers accountable. She pounded the table about that. They now write her bills. That's what people are sick and tired of, and that's why I'm in this race, and it's why I'm going to retire Senator Warren.
It's the Senate that votes on Supreme Court justices. I want to ask you about the flag controversies right now surrounding the Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito. An upside-down American flag flew outside of his Virginia home in 2021. The New York Times is reporting that the Appeal to Heaven flag flew outside of his summer home in New Jersey last year. That flag, of course, was also seen on the January 6th riot at the Capitol. What's your reaction to this?
My reaction is the Supreme Court is the supreme law of the land, and people need faith in their institutions, especially that one. So I would hope that Judge Alito would do what I would do. I wouldn't be in that situation, but he should recuse himself anything related to those activities.
But he doesn't have to.
He doesn't have to, but listen, the laws, the conflict laws, they want you to not even have an appearance of impropriety. So the best thing to do is to keep the faith in the institution and don't bring that into question. So that's what I would do if I were in his shoes.
Do you think the general public has faith in this institution? I mean, they have lifetime terms right now.
I think all of our federal, the public's losing faith in all our federal agencies, including the Supreme Court. We've got to get people who are nonpartisan. The biggest difference, or one of the biggest differences between me and Senator Warren, is I will be loyal to Massachusetts and America. That's my test. Not party, not agenda, not a person.
Our thanks again to John Deaton. We appreciate your time this Sunday morning. We do.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.